Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all participants. My name is Solange Slack from the Communication Department of the International Organization of Vine and Wine, and it is a great pleasure, along with the OIV Director General, Pao Roca, and the Secretary General of the World Tourism Organization, Zurab Pololikashvili, to welcome you to this live webinar organized jointly by both organizations and in cooperation with the Wine Tourism International Think Tank. Today, we'll be focusing on innovating in wine tourism in the context of COVID-19. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Roca to deliver his opening speech.
Hello, everybody. Dear Secretary General, my dear friend, Zurab Pololikashvili of the United Nations World Tourism Organization. Dear friends, I'm here in Paris addressing this initial speech, and the OIV, as you know, it's an intergovernmental organization with 47 member states, which are governments, as in the WTO. It was founded in 1924, almost 100 years ago, and the creation was a response to a crisis and created by the prohibition in the United States of America at that moment. Now we are also facing a different crisis in consumption as well. While sales in stores are called, that are called the off-trade, are still not suffering much, the on-trade channel, that is where you purchase and consume in the same spot, bars and restaurants mainly, have reduced to almost zero during the lockdown, and they are very difficult to recuperate. This channel is completely dependent on tourism, especially in large part of the globe where tourism is very important in many countries. So OIV has been placed in a central position to respond and give solutions, to develop the economy of vineyards and farmers, and to promote commerce of wine. Last year, all 47 governments approved that wine tourism had a strong role in the wine economy and in the economic development. So the strong points of this is diversity, that represents wine tourism, the rural areas where it is developed, this activity, and the very strong cultural link. So all these factors generate the attractivity of wine tourism. In particular, in this particular moment, as you will probably discover through this webinar, wine tourism has also some opportunities to increase the share among other categories of tourism. So in these moments, this strong partnership between the OIV and the UNWTO is particularly important. We share and push efforts and in the same direction. We want to row in the same direction, and this is what the tourism economy is expecting that we do. So good work, and bring up some ideas and conclusions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is a great honor and a pleasure to count on Mr. Pololikashvili's presence today, and we are looking forward to hearing his welcome speech. Mr. Secretary General, over to you.
Remember, we signed first MOU ever with your organization during FITUR, and we really had very important and very interesting plans and projects to develop together. Unfortunately, pandemic just in 2 months stopped this process. Today, this is another confirmation that we want to drink wine together. This is only thing you can't. There are several things what we can't do via teleconferences, but I'm sure that our friendship just started in January. Our friendship started many years ago, but officially we started to think how important wine is for tourism and gastronomy is for tourism. As you know, 3 years ago, our organization started first time to promote worldwide wine conferences. And I think that all our member states, for them, this is the most funny and interesting event ever, you know. We had more than 600, 700 participants always. This year it was planned to organize in Alentejo in Portugal, but because of COVID, we had to postpone it for next May, and I'm sure that next May we all will go to Portugal to celebrate this very important event. For us, again, the gastronomy and wine tourism are key pillars to develop tourism in rural areas. As you know, in 2019, last year, we announced, without knowing that pandemic will be in February or March, of course, 2020 like a rural tourism year. And our idea was to support new destinations, to support regional development, and to create new destinations to support people who are working and who can live with income from tourism, and especially in wine tourism. And we just came from Executive Council, which was celebrated first time ever after pandemic. It was a presential meeting, and I'm so happy that we all agree with our member states, our members of Executive Council, to continue this route we selected last year. In 2021 we will do, and we will support again rural tourism, where wine is very important part from the business point of view, from an emotional point of view, from the part of tourism. There is no nice trips without nice wine. So I'm sure that today's webinar will give new ideas. Innovation after pandemic became very important part of our life. It was, but now it's more and more important to have new products, new technologies, new digital platforms. And I'm sure that this meeting will be, and this webinar will be one of them, where we can all discuss how can we develop this excellent part of our job, because we really need your ideas and your initiatives, your creative projects, and we are only to support, to listen, and to develop together with you. I hope that very soon, in maybe next Fitur, we can meet again, Pau, and then we can restart wine tourism as we started to restart tourism, generally speaking. I'm so proud and so happy that have such good friends and partners, and I'm sure that this webinar will be one of historical one. Again, it's very difficult to make wine conferences or talk about wine without be together, but I'm sure that very soon we will have this opportunity to make a toast for tourism, make a toast for our friendship, and coordination again is one of the most important part of our life during the last 3, 4, or 5 months. So I thank all speakers who will share innovative experiences from Argentina, from Chile, from France, from South Africa. These are countries who are really leaders in wine tourism. There are more, of course. I don't want to miss our friends from other countries. But again, if we will continue this dynamic, I'm sure that in Alentejo, in Portugal, we will meet each other with concrete projects, more prepared than ever, because we had more time to be at home, to think more, to work more, and Alentejo will be the place where we can approve guidelines how to improve and how to make new destinations, which are wine tours, which are rural tourist destinations, and I will be very happy to have all of you with a glass of wine in Alentejo. Thank you very much, and have a successful and nice webinar.
Thank you very much. Before we kick off, a few information on how we will proceed. A question and answer session will follow the presentations, and I'm delighted to see so many of you here. I can see that 160 people are joining in on YouTube and 150 on Zoom, which is fantastic. And I would like to invite everyone to share their questions with you. You can do so during the presentations, and we will share them to our speakers in due time. During the next hour and a half, Mariette de Hembolt, based in South Africa, will be moderating this session. Mariette established Destinate. It's a destination management and strategic marketing agency. In 2013, after 10 years as the award-winning CEO of Cape Town Tourism, Mariette is in demand internationally as a tourism and marketing strategist, facilitator and speaker on tourism, destination management, wine tourism, and innovation in marketing. Please, Mariette, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Solange, and good afternoon from the Cape Winelands in South Africa. It is a beautiful spring afternoon here, and it's an honor to moderate today's session. Anyone working in tourism will know that the past weeks and months have been saturated with uncertainty, anxiety, and fear. Millions of jobs have been left in the balance, and the hard-earned tourism growth achieved over the last few years and decades have been wiped out. But yet, as travel restrictions begin to lift and we get used to this new abnormal that we live in, there's a glimmer of hope in the future. Tourism has always been resilient, and the industry is hard at work, rebuilding stronger and more sustainably than ever before. Taking care of each other, building relationships of trust between regions, businesses within the ecosystem of wine tourism, and with our staff and customers should be our continued focus. Wine tourism can transform places, and in a country like South Africa, where economic development is so desperately needed, we have seen it empower small businesses and communities within the value chain of wine tourism. In recent years, there's been a greater focus on wine tourism, and it's brought more visitors to previously undiscovered regions. And pioneering people in wine tourism has realized that their estates and farms' true potential for growth lies in wine tourism, giving rise to new developments and greater investment in experiences beyond just wine. And this entices visitors to stay longer and spend more locally where it's needed. So our industry has been brought to its knees by a hard lockdown and 2 complete bans on the sales of wine here in South Africa within the last few months. And hundreds of businesses are in danger of losing their businesses, and thousands of jobs are at risk. So it's imperative that we start and restart tourism responsibly and build with a renewed focus on local and sustainable travel. And just before I introduce our stellar panel, and may I add, it's an all-female panel of wine tourism experts from around the world, I just want to bring out a few key findings that we shared during a recent webinar here in South Africa on wine tourism. Number 1, health and safety are set to be our priority for the foreseeable future, as we know that people want peace of mind and peace of heart. Collaboration is a word that's coming out very strongly, and it's key to moving ourselves forward as an industry. And this is collaboration across sectors, across regions, and as we've seen with the think tank on wine tourism, across the globe as well. It's really time to woo the domestic market. We need to approach digital solutions with less trepidation and more creativity. But we need to remember that technology is simply an enabler, and it needs a human story with engagement to be truly impactful. And then the last key takeout that I want to leave you with is that our spaces within the wine regions will be our greatest assets post-lockdown, and we need to use them well. And I want to add to that our people and local people are also our greatest assets, and we really need to work together as communities to make sure that we rebuild stronger. So each of our panelists this evening will share a brief presentation, followed by a facilitated discussion. We've prepared a number of what we hope are interesting questions, but you're obviously very welcome to post questions as well, and we'll get to them. And of course, if we can't deal with all the questions, I'm sure we will be very happy to engage with you beyond this evening. It's such an important topic of conversation. So allow me to introduce to you our first speaker, Roberto Garibaldi from the Associazione Italiana Turismo Enogastronomica based in Italy. And she will be sharing some of the findings of I think first of its kind international survey on the impact of COVID-19 on wine tourism. Roberto, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm very honored for being among the speakers. Thank you for the invitation. And okay, today I'm going, to present preliminary results of a worldwide survey that we as a Wine Tourism International think tank are carrying out to assess the impact of COVID-19 on this important tourism practice. The think tank was established in April 2020 with the purpose of achieving a better understanding of wine tourism and activating specific actions to properly face the new challenges in this scenario. All speakers are of this conference are active members of the Wine Tourism International think tank. So, I will present the data in 7-8 minutes, and we'll discuss the findings along the webinar, because we have a lot of data and I could speak 1 hour about this, but we'll do, because we will find a lot of tips and we have the time to discuss it through our webinar. So let's start with the characteristic of the panel. The majority of wineries are small size, with 53% that produce annually less than 100,000 bottles. It must be argued that the panel comprises also medium and large production sites, making it relatable in terms of representativeness and results. As concerned their attractiveness, more than half, 58%, welcome 5,000 or less visitors in 2019, and they were mainly domestic. Only Italy has a larger percentage of international tourists. The survey was certainly an opportunity to identify the most offered experience by wineries in various countries. If guided visits and tastings rank first and second in the top 10, we can notice that a large number of producers are currently offering a large number of experiences. We have a very good diversification with an increasing number of events and co-creative activities, testifying in the differentiation and the attractiveness of the sector. And we can see an increasing number of situations like lunch or dinner in the vineyards. 23% offer harvest for tourists, now reduced at 13% after the COVID. Moving to changes before and after the pandemic, we can see, as we could imagine, that events experienced had a decrease, We notice a decrease of activities that require a large number of workers, as for example, activities for families, artistic activities in the vineyards, and so on. In fact, we also notice that the number of employees involved in the provision of tourism services has decreased from an average of 5.8 in each winery to 4, as a direct effect of the financial losses caused by COVID-19. On the contrary, outdoor activities such as picnic and tasting in the vineyards has grown, although traditional visits and tasting remain the most popular. Let's go further and see distribution channels. Today, the majority of tourism services are booked offline. These channels account for 62%, while online is 25%. However, producers agree that they are important tools to further develop in the future, as we can see in next slides. Direct channels represent 66% of the total sales, while only 22% come from intermediaries such as tour operators and hotels. In how they deal with financial losses. Data confirm us that online sales and home delivery were the most common actions activated. As we saw, they have largely grown worldwide in these months. Among the other, 32% created virtual wine tastings and 27% offered gift card for future on-site visits. It's interesting to see the increase of wine clubs. They are valuable marketing tools that surely help the relation with the residents and the local tourists. For example, in the Italian context, these clubs were less common compared to other wine countries, such as United States, but they are now growing in number as their adoption stimulates a more emphasis on local sales. That were quite ignored in the past years instead of national and international markets. 59% are aware of the wineries, are aware that COVID-19 was a perfect storm, and the wine tourism industry will not be the same, although they will be able to return to business as before. Investments are required, as declared by 56% of respondents, and it therefore is crucial for a better future to change perspectives, to innovate and to develop a new vision. For 32% of wineries, this crisis will mean a reduction of tourist activities. We have already noticed that the provision of some activities was negatively affected. Luckily, only 5% are considering abandoning tourism and 5% to close. Giving details about countries, in Spain, a larger number of wineries are now thinking about the possibility to abandon or close, while in Italy, the situation appears less critical. Wineries are aware of the strategies for recovery that during these months, UNWTO and also other partners have deeply discussed in the webinars. I personally like the fact that incorporating local culture in wine experiences ranks first, as testifies the desire to open the winery to the place and to the local people. The need for diversification is another issue that emerges. We have carried out researches and found that offerings sometimes appears too similar, especially for wine-motivated tourists. It's also positive to notice that 78% of the wineries think that creating experiences with the active participation of visitors and having a direct relationship with customer, which means create loyalty, can be valuable for the sector. 77% offering sustainable experiences and 72% having reservation system. Wineries are now conscious, but we should understand what they are doing and asking to put them in practice. What do they need? We can see here the results. not only financial support, for example, grants, assistance for unemployed people, guaranteed loans, but also training activities. Producers had the need to implement their knowledge, be prepared to welcome visitors and satisfy their need under a new scenario. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roberta. That's really interesting. I find in particularly the emphasis on diversifying your experiences and a bigger focus on local culture very encouraging. And I think it's a good point around how we rebuild this industry in a more sustainable and a more inclusive manner. Thank you for sharing. Next up, we have Lorena Shiparo from Argentina to talk specifically about the reinvention of gastronomy in wineries. So of course, we know that the food industry is very closely linked with the wine sector. And I'm encouraged to hear about the innovation that's happening within the food and restaurant sector. So Lorena, please join us.
Hi, hello, thank you. Let's share my screen. Just a second. There we go. Okay, I think everyone is able to see the presentation now. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to join you to share a little bit of what's happened, at least in Argentina, with enogastronomy. First and very quickly, for those who are not that aware, well, this is where we are in Argentina, South America. The origin of vine growing and winemaking is very old. It comes with the colons and then with different waves of European immigration. By 1970, Argentina had a domestic consumption of 92 liters per capita. And today we have around 190,000 hectares cultivated and the domestic consumption is near 20 liters per capita. We exported in 2019 312 million liters, of which 61% was bottled and 39% bulk. This is just to give you an idea of Argentina in general. Regarding a quick overview on wine tourism in Argentina, it's a very important activity. We have 245 wineries open to tourism in Argentina, divided in 3 main regions. The Center-West region with 165 wineries offering wine tourism, of which 146 are located in Mendoza, which is where I am right now. So Mendoza is the main wine tourism region in Argentina. Then we have the Northeast region with 44 wineries open to public, of which 21 are located in Salta, which is the second most important wine tourism in Argentina. Then we have other 36 wineries in East, South, and New regions, of which 16 are in Córdoba, a province in the center of Argentina, and 11 in Rio Negro in the south, in Patagonia. Wine tourism employment, this gives you an idea of the importance, is about 900 permanent workers and 350 temporary or seasonal workers. And regarding enogastronomy, which is the matter that occupies me today, is we can say that about 46% of wineries open to tourism offer gastronomy experiences. So we have around 113 winery restaurants or gastronomy services offered at wineries. So this meant a big impact, particularly to wine restaurants, because the lockdown actually started in mid-March, which is the peak of our season, the harvest time in Argentina. And actually our budgets and our provisions for this year were excellent. We were actually expecting to continue the growth that we have been carrying the last few years in traffic on people and also in value, mainly driven for a lot of international wine tourists, but at the same time, national tourists. So then we have the uncertainty. Then the second step was, let's do something. Then we reopened the restaurants with lots of restrictions. And then I will mention some of the expectations we have for the next few months. So uncertainty, basically, we have all gone through these, no information regarding when we would be able to reopen. We were afraid for the employment and the employees, things that Mariette has also mentioned. Probably we knew that no international tourism would come for a long time, and we would have to offer our services only to local clients. And we had also the rising sanitary and economic crisis, which actually threatens even the non-essential expenses for the local public. So we needed to be very creative. The first and the possible driver for recovery, it was obviously the gastronomy, because the tours and tastings are not so attractive or not that attractive for local public, while the gastronomy is something we could offer. So if the customers couldn't come to the winery restaurants because we were closed, then we thought of ways of going to the customers. And this was the birth of the enogastronomy at home, with the added value that many wineries also use this as a tool for the public to be in contact with our chefs and our winemakers, becoming not only a restaurant business continuity solution, but also a tool for wine communication of the products, and again, using the hospitality to create new brand ambassadors for the different wineries. These are some of the examples of the initiatives. So I myself work for Chandon and Terrazas de los Andes, but I also could get some other examples of many other wineries that actually created menus and experiences that people could buy and receive at home, like a really high-end gastronomy menu paired with different wines, with very interesting instructions that people could actually follow at home to prepare the plates and then enjoy the pairings. The added value was this connection to the customers. In many cases, the wineries would offer this possibility to regular consumers, and it's been really a great thing, along with all the rest of the experiences of only tastings at home, which many of the wineries, or all of them, actually carried out. Another thing that we discovered is that not only like a delivery at home, but also we could do with this model events. And actually we had, like 3 weeks ago, a really big fundraising event, which normally would have been held at a big hotel with a lot of people together. And since this was not possible, we sold actually 377 menus that came to people's houses, and they connected, and we created like a streaming and online content to share with people. And it was actually a success in terms of fundraising also. So we see this also as an opportunity in the middle of this emergency to gain other business opportunities. Another thing which could actually be put to work and is working is the outdoor activities, even if there are many. One example we have, at least here in Mendoza, which is working very well, is the yoga classes, together with some gastronomy experiences like a brunch, or perhaps having an afternoon tea. This is working very well, and there are more outdoor activities appearing lately, like horse ridings, like bike rides to the vineyards, combined with other gastronomy experiences at the winery. So regarding the reopening, which at least in Mendoza was possible since mid-June with lots of restrictions, we had to refocus our strategy because we would have 100% local public with reduced money availability, lots of sanitary restrictions, and of course, the restriction to use only 50% of the capacity of the restaurants. So what we did was to adapt to this and to try to keep the bike cycling or moving. And we designed new menus at lower prices to offer to local public. We had to innovate in local communication. We were used to talk to travel agencies, to talk to international public, and now we had to recontact with the local public so that they could actually see our offers and be seduced by our experiences. And actually, this is working very well. And I would say that mostly on the weekends, most winery restaurants that are open tend to be full with local people. And we had, of course, to adapt our facilities and to carry on lots of sanitary protocols and staff training to give people the tranquility that they could come and have lunch or dinner at our restaurants with no risk. So the next month, what we expect is it's a gradual opening, as we have been seeing. We have been going back and forth, but so far family and friends encounters are forbidden. So we expect that this first step will actually help not only to more people come to the restaurants, but also to move much more these delivery services, which could actually work very well for meetings at home with friends and families. Then cultural activities probably will be the next step, and we have a very big offer of cultural activities at winery, so we think this can be done outdoors, and this is a great opportunity to reactivate our activity by the end of this year. We are also expecting the domestic flights, because in Argentina we still don't have domestic flights within the country. So this will start moving the national tourism, which is one of the main expectations that we have. Then we expect international tourism probably only for next year. And so like a final message, I would like to say that we believe that in the human area of experience and enjoyment, tourism will recover. People want to travel, so we have to be prepared. That's our message. Thank you.
Wonderful. That is an encouraging message indeed. Thank you, Loreno. And now over to France, and we're hearing from Catherine Leparmentier from the Great Wine Capitals Global Network, and specifically talking about that wonderful God-given thing, our open spaces, our natural environment, and how we can utilize it, and where our settings is for more outdoor experiences. Thank you, Catherine.
Yes, thank you to give me this opportunity to present this today before you. Even though I'm involved in the great wine capitals of the world, I've been asked to focus on the French perspective of wine tourism and how we organized and managed the outdoor experiences in the wine tourism field. So I will start with a few figures as summer season, how it went in France. Lockdown was started mid-May, and as soon as we could sort of go out, the French government has launched a national campaign, Cet été, je visite la France. That means this summer I visit France. And it did work pretty well, as 94% of French travelers traveled in France. 37% went to the beach, but 30% stayed in rural areas. And the main teaching, now that we are starting fall in France, the main teaching of this summer session was that we did have no tourists from outside of Europe, for obvious reasons. We did welcome some people from Belgium, Netherlands, Switzerland, a few from the UK, hardly any from Spain or Italy, who are generally our best tourists. Another teaching is that urban tourism has been in strong decline. Paris has seen no tourists, for example. Small capacity accommodations were much more successful than big international hotels. And activities, the most popular activities that taken by tourists were sports, leisure, and outdoors activities. So of course, these trends that occurred during this summer have strongly benefited wine tourism, of course, as winery offer great amount of space in the countryside and fresh air. Winery offers beautiful views. A vineyard in itself is already a landscape. Wineries offer many outdoor playful activities, and they are in capacity to welcome small groups, which was the way people traveled this summer. In terms of accommodation, the accommodation in wineries is more like a boutique type bed and breakfast thing than big hotels. So it really answered the tourists' expectations. But innovation started in France and in Bordeaux in particular, where I'm from, way before COVID. Wine tourism today is much more than just a technical visit of the cellars and a wine tasting. The sector has been innovative for several months and several years, and it offers now different kinds of experience, including many kind of outdoor experience immersed in nature. To the point that nowadays wine tourism is definitely an art of living. So today, if you come to Bordeaux or to the wine sectors or to the wineries, you will be able to enjoy all kinds of nature activities like hiking, biking, horse riding. Whether you are an Epicurean or an art lover, vineyards are the right tourist frame for you. Picnics in the vineyards, food trucks, gastronomic tables, gastronomic lunches on the terrace of a chateau. This is possible, as well as traveling through the vines and discover disseminated art of work. The demand for outdoor activities also allowed people to rediscover agricultural life. They were told about terroirs. They learned about biodiversity. And innovative wine tourism also went into slow tourism concept, as already mentioned by Lorena just before. Nowadays, wineries offer wellness activities like yoga classes, or they offer you time to rest and enjoy a glass of wine within on the park of the winery. Fun and playful activities have also been implemented, like wine tasting on top of a tree. And of course, many festivals or concerts have been cancelled this summer due to the situation, but chateaus have recreated different kind of events, like afterworks, for example, where people would just come for an hour and a half and enjoy a little short, small band of music and meet each other. So what has mainly changed in terms of outdoor activities with the COVID crisis? Well, obviously we have many more wine tastings outside, and that was already said by our first speaker. We have COVID information displays all over the wineries, all over the places, as long as social distancing marks. And some wineries have also implemented some wine tasting kits that they handle to each of their visitors. That is, they offer a glass that the tourist can take with him or with her afterwards. In the kits, you will find also these wipes, disinfectant wipes, and individual spittoon. So now that we are in fall and the holiday season is over in France, schools have restarted, people are back home. We know we can assert that, of course, there has been less visitors in the vineyards than last year, mainly French visitors, obviously. Visitors came in smaller groups or families. And even though we welcomed less visitors in the vineyards, the average basket was actually higher than in the previous year. And that is probably a logical thing, first, because when people come in smaller group, it means that the guide will be more attentive to their expectations, and they feel more welcome, and they are more susceptible to buy wine at the end of the visit. And also another very practical reason for that is that domestic tourists, the French tourists visiting France, usually use their own car, and it's much easier to buy and take wine home if you have your car than if you travel by plane, of course. Okay, so what's next now? Since we're early September, unfortunately, we have to be honest, the holiday season is over. Outdoors activities, as winter is coming, will slow down for sure. Business tourism, which is very important for us in Bordeaux, in the winery, as seminars, conferences are organized, this kind of tourism has not recovered yet and will probably not recover before next year. But the good news is that all the innovative activities that the wineries have set up during COVID and during lockdown in particular, like already mentioned, virtual tastings, online cooking classes, etc. All these things will redevelop, I think, during winter on a counter season, low season for tourism. There will be some wine tourism activities, and that will allow wineries to better communicate, to still communicate, and of course to sell wine. And this is why we're here, to sell the wine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. That was really interesting. I think one of the greatest opportunities that come with the crisis, and they say any good crisis comes with a few opportunities if we can survive it, is that we have seen such a huge uptake in rural and small town tourism. So many of, certainly in South Africa, many of these towns that desperately need travelers now can really position themselves as attractive destinations. So yes, we've seen cities going really quiet as people want to escape to open spaces safely with their friends and family. And I also think the innovation that's coming through, I really hope that wineries will incorporate that into the future, and that it's not just a survival mechanism, but that innovation will become a key pillar of the way in which we sustain ourselves and continue innovating into the future. So thank you for that. That was really interesting. And next up, we're staying with wine tourism and innovation, of course. Irene Gimeno from Chile, which is a beautiful part of the world. I was honored to be there in December. That was actually my last international trip before the lockdown, and what a lovely destination to kind of finish off before lockdown. And it was really interesting for me to see so many similarities with South Africa in Chile, and also to see how important the local market is in terms of developing the local market and getting more local people to enjoy wine. So talk to us a little bit about the challenges and how you've worked together as a sector with government to overcome, but also put some really interesting strategies in place to really use this pandemic as an opportunity to take the sector forward into the future. Thank you, Irene.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having us here today. We are really happy to be part of this think tank, and we think that it is absolutely necessary. I don't know if you can see my presentation. Can you see it now? Yeah, okay. So okay, let me work this out. Now, there we go. Okay. So Enoturismo Chile is a national program which seeks to enhance wine tourism from an integral point of view, supporting wineries and the communities that are part of the industry value chain, and taking the merge of wine and tourism as a motor of economic and social development for rural communities. You know, this project was created in 2016 by the government, and it started operating in 2018. And there have been substantial changes since. For example, the amount of people visiting vineyards has grown from around 745,000 to over 1 million, which means that is plus 55% more visits. Now, our mission was always to increase the amount of Chilean who actually visit the 16 wine valleys that we have open to, that have touristic activities. But the growth has taken place overall, not just locals, because we have seen an increase in the numbers of visitors from around the globe, not based on this year, which we haven't received, but as Maria said, you know, up to December, the number, the industry was sustainably growing. So today we know that there are over 150 wineries open to the public in Chile, which is more than 50% more regarding 2015. And the sector has experienced a sustained growth, increasing tourist expenditure as well in vineyards in over 20% in the past 4 years. So that was really good news up to last year. But before we get into what we have been doing this year, we must say that in the case of Chile, the industry has suffered a double strike in the past 12 months, because before the COVID, we had the civil protest starting in October last year, which stopped mainly, you know, all activities. and tourism and mobility around the country. And then when we were starting to recover and reopen the businesses and in the value chain, and then COVID-19 stopped all sorts of reactivation hopes back in March. And so then we move on to the measures taken. We would like to say that the first phase was containment, then adaptation, and then reactivation. And going more in depth, we called it containment because what we did was trying to understand the situation in detail, to analyze what it meant for us to having to stop these activities and close our wineries and having to suspend all the employees' work, etc. So what we did is getting together the public and private partners under Enoturismo Chile. We organized need finding workshops and established measures to be taken. And then we decided that we needed further data for the best diagnosis of the sector, as well as forming employees for a better to offer a better experience for the customer, thinking towards reactivation. And we also had to change the way we approach the public and the messages we send them, both from the public and the private sector. So it changed from an invitation to enjoy wine tourism and participating of it, visiting the wine valleys in Chile, to prioritizing health and security and being patient. Then after those circumstances where we sort of overcame them, we moved on to adaptation, which would be phase 2. And what we did was going on to developing the contingency measures. We started a national registry, gathering information of over 145 wineries about different aspects of the way they operate, as we needed to understand better, how this pandemic situation affected them. Then we organized workshops for the companies involved in the value chain and tried to transmit the importance of digitalization, commercialization, and standardization of data and the practices in order to strengthen their infrastructure towards a third phase where they would reopen to the public. And we also developed, together with the public authorities, we also developed sanitary protocols and organized online activities to the open public, where we try to project the reactivation based on other international destinations which were ahead in the reopening process. For example, we had a webinar together with some of wineries in Spain, as well as other institutions, which served us as an example of what we could expect, because Chile is always a bit behind in the reopening process since we started a bit later on. And it's still been really hardly hit by COVID. So it's just reopening and reactivating now. And finally, we go on to the phase we are working on right now, where what we're trying to do is moving on to reopening businesses. And so what we have done is try to provide technical advice through documents on hygiene and security for wineries, which have been developed together with the public authorities, as I said. Then also promoting commercialization tools to provide concrete measures, such as this online site, Enoticket, which funnels the visits to our wineries that get on board and also registers the data in order to standardize and compare behavior throughout the country, and thus get us to know the sector in further detail. And now we are preparing to launch a massive marketing campaign where the messages will adapt to the current context and limitations caused by the pandemic, and we'll try to put wine tourism under the spotlight constantly. So while it's undeniable that COVID-19 sanitary emergency has taken a toll on Chilean wine tourism, we want to think of it also as an opportunity to strengthen the call for local wine tourism amongst the national public. If there was a tendency to look up to other destinations or maybe aiming to go abroad for the holidays, we now know the local tourism will be the most popular choice the next high season, which is starts in a couple of months, around December and until March next year. And we hope to be able to carry out our Harvest Festival and so on, which we couldn't do last year. So what we're calling for is for wineries and the rest of businesses, you know, in the local market, as Maria said before, which is so very important for us, to just try and turn the situation around a little bit, make the most of it with the tools developed and provided for these new circumstances, and to work in cooperation together, the private and the public sector, to actually overcome these circumstances. So thank you very much, and we will be open to any questions.
Thank you, Irene. That was really interesting. I think a great example of a very good strategy and crisis management in tough times. And I think a lot of destinations can take a few pages from that book. And I think it's probably because you were learning quite a lot from having just come from a very big crisis yourself just before the second, even bigger crisis hit. So interesting times. We're going to move on now to Zahida Semperin from the World Shopping Tourism Network to talk about our new reality. And does this mean that we need a new kind of wine tourism? I'm very interested to hear what you've got to say.
Thank you, Maria. It's a pleasure to participate in this webinar, and we are going to share the presentation. Sorry for the delay. Okay. In a short review in 2 pictures to remember where the sector came from. This was the typical picture of Spanish summer. And Spain was the second destination in the world, focusing on all European markets with a volume model operated by tour operators and concentrated on beaches and destinations. And the picture of Spanish wine tourism before the pandemic was this, with a small amount if we compare with the total number of tourists, focused on national market, set more balanced percentage in region with the highest rate of foreign tourism, 700 wineries in Spanish Wine Route Association, but more than 50% of the total visitors concentrated in the 20 biggest. One tourist profile, wine lover, more women than men, and they move by car. 61% of the visitors choose the same 4 destinations, Penedès, Servi region, Ribera or Rioja. And the 70% of the offer was traditional tour offer. Spanish wine and food trends during the lockdown, trends that have came to stay, new wine lovers, new consumption moments, and online promotion. And we arrived to July, the moment to open again with this picture from 50 years ago as a reflection of our new reality. With these topics, safety stamps, proximity and rural destinations, and travels with family and friends that have represented challenges and opportunities for the sector, whose model was still tank and barrel wine tourism, with very structured, repetitive, and rigid offer with these general characteristics: big groups, 90 minutes inside tour, only last 20 minutes for tasting, 15 euros ticket more or less, and a storytelling focus in production steps. And suddenly it has begun to become landscapes with soul wine tourism. So we need to redesign what to offer and how. Little groups, tailor-made experiences, new storytellings, open new spaces and new open spaces. Let people enjoy freely experiences without schedule and raise average prices. And we have discovered again that landscapes around the wineries give us differentiation, because the red colors in October in Rioja tells you that climatic and edaphic conditions are different, or when you smell the Atlantic breeze in Rias Baixas, you understand the typicity of Albarino. When you discover the heroic agriculture in Ribera Sacra, you value more its people and its wines. When you leave Sunset Rocket by the West Wing in Cadiz, you know why the sherries are unique. Or when you visit the volcanic heart of Lanzarote, you appreciate more the power and the tenacity of its winemakers. And this gives us opportunities and challenges, new challenges and ways to engage with the visitors. This is the new visitor centers of Cineo Winery in Rioja. New spaces and new ways to immerse yourself in the wine culture, like tapas and cavas dinners in Freysonet. New opening hours and new moments to enjoy our winery. Tardeo means the sunset moment, and usually was the hour that a lot of wineries close the tours, and new intergenerational experiences with new targets of visitors also. New tools to attract the traveler. New tasting rooms and more time for the tasting. New food pairing experiences with new brands and destinations ambassadors. And finally, new points of view and new experiences based in landscape resources, like catamaran wine experience in Miño River or Campo de Borja wine region's view from the sky. So the new reality has taught us that the differentiation of the wine tourism offer is not winery or the production, it is the hand of the spaces and experiences that bring the traveler closer to the living landscapes and people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zaida. That last summary is so perfect. And wine tourism has always been about connecting people and places and bring us closer together. There's nothing better than breaking bread and sharing a beautiful bottle of wine with new and old friends. So thank you for that reminder. And I think our travelers from all over the world crave to be able to return to the air and to the road, to be able to reconnect with self and their special people in these special places that so many of us are privileged to work in and live in as the wine industry. So I want to, just our last speaker is Beatrice Vergara. Hello, Beatrice. Thank you for joining us from Spain to talk a little bit more about experience and the uniqueness of wine tourism and the opportunities that come with that, to create what we call an integrated wine tourism offering. And we've spoken a lot about the need for collaboration, and this is definitely a key learning from this pandemic, is that together we are much stronger and together we will recover quicker. So thank you, Beatrice. We look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here in this webinar. I'm going to share my presentation. Well, wine tourism has always contributed to the seasonalized destinations. It's already an innovative and different way of delving deeper into the culture, history, traditions, and landscape of the territory. And now there is an opportunity of aligning offer with the tourist trends that were already demanded. More personalized and individualized experiences, ad hoc experiences, more authentic offers, which even integrate the complementary offer of the destination. This will help to learn more about our visitors, to increase engagement and loyalty through leisure, enjoyment, and unforgettable memories. The result of the intangible will necessarily mean an effort in digitalization, in the way of communicating the importance of our databases, the e-commerce, even the booking process, even some of the experience like online wine tasting, direct sales, and wine clubs that will provide a better transformation into tangible. It also opens a great opportunity to rescue and promote domestic and nervy tourism, turning visitors then into prescribers and fans of their own destination and of our wines. As González Vías has a great number of wine cellars around the world, but I'm going to explain what we have done this summer in Jerez. We have a unique offer competitive that integrate events, venues, winery, the city, and the vineyards. And now we have added the accommodation with Tio Pepe Hotel. The integrated wine tourism offer include tourist offer, the winery, the experiences, positioning through experience, and going to the brand destination. To include bi-level experiences offered by the destination as a part of the overall offer. The key to wine tourism, it is the tangible way of disclosing the intangible of our brands. Nowadays, everyone wants his customer to have brand experience. Customers no longer go to the store to buy, not only, but to create an emotional connection with the company and to feel affinity, to create unforgettable experiences and to build strong relationships. For example, banks have become relaxed areas where to have a coffee, where to enjoy co-working and spaces for events. They want to make life easier and better. Apple Store have become a product experience where you play with them. Stores like H&M are readapting and going from macro stores to boutique stores, offering yoga lesson, conference, gardening, from fast fashion to slow fashion, more ecological, ethical, and sustainable. In the wineries, we have the capacity for experience. It is the main point of contact where customers can truly go on. It is the authentic, immersive brand experience. We explain why do we make wines, to make people more happy, enjoying, having fun, sharing, and celebrating. We have the way to explain how we make it, the formative area, explaining the wine making process. We can explain what wines do we make, is the informative area. What kinds of wine we produce, with the variety of grapes, etc. All that to inspire and excite, get fans from our brands. I bring two cases we have done this summer in Jerez. One is the Tio Pepe experience at the Royal School. It's a local complementary offer. It is a performance between rhythm and a selection of wines, making a perfect pairing of them. And the other case is the summertime as the wine cellar in the bodega. We have opening the doors of the bodega to the city, to the complementary offer, with 3 important different restaurants from Jerez in different places inside the bodega, with an offer of the flamenco show as a part of the Spanish culture, evenings at Patio de la Bodega with live music and drinks, and also sleep and drinks at the wine cellar in the Tio Pepe hotel. I have a short video of what we have done this summer, so you can see all this in a small video.
Cuando ya no amargan las despedidas, cuando solo sopla el viento a favor, cuando ya no escondes ninguna herida, cuando sacas pecho a cualquier temor, cuando arriesgas todo y no tiembla el pulso, sabes que hay naufragio y después hay sol. Cuando retrocedes para darte impulso, matando a los fantasmas de tu interior. Ya lo ves, que no hay dos sin tres, levantarte después del peor traspiés. Ya lo ves, que no estaba todo perdido. Reinventarse y vivir.
La vida escrita en verso y sin duda sentir que enfrenta hoy tu miedo y hace del amor la receta que buscas para cualquier vida.
Reinventarse y vivir, la vida escrita en verso y sin duda sentir que enfrentas hoy tus miedos y hace del amor. La que buscas para cualquier
That's absolutely beautiful. I certainly cannot wait to travel again and to visit the beautiful vineyards around the world. I think people are realizing that wine is made in beautiful places around the world that is worth visiting for much more than just good wine. And to have these kind of experiences is a dream for many travelers. Thank you very much for that. We're now heading over to question and answers time, and we have a couple of great questions lined up. And Beatrice, while you are online there, and before you disappear from my screen, I've got a question for you in terms of the most exciting new products that you've seen emerge and from a visitor experience perspective. And do you think that this pandemic will continue to stimulate innovation and visitor experiences?
Sure, because I think wine tourism is an innovative and different way to get in contact with customers. So we will have to be very creative and to go on with innovating and making things different.
I think it's a great opportunity, and one space where we've seen a lot of innovation and a big uptake. If I can address this to Roberta, is that we've seen a massive surge in online sales across the globe. And it's safe to say that this pandemic has been the catalyst for an online wine revolution. And it was interesting to see also in your stats that you shared the huge increase in online sales and virtual experiences, etc. How can the wine tourism industry embrace technology and online sales platforms to repackage and grow wine tourism post-lockdown? Roberta?
Thank you. I think it's a great challenge for the future of wine sector, and so it will be very interesting to organize and better organize what happens in these months. And so I think, for example, that is very important that we can start the collection of the data, because it's from effective visitors and potential ones, both offline and online visitors on websites and on social media. being able to track these users and store their contacts in online booking portals to plan creative and efficient services with specific offers for each target. I believe that the future is going to be less about generic offer, but we need to create a personalized offer, and then we have a great opportunity if we start to use better the data. And so it will be very interesting to do this challenge, to face this challenge. And we studied a lot of the digital tasting that we saw a great increase in these months from Australia to United States. We analyzed the offer from different point of views, from the situation of the tools that were used, who spoke, the contents, and so on. And so we can say that we all think that could be something very interesting for the future too, but we need to have a more professionalized organization, starting from what we need to use a professional webcam, microphone, and so on, to use better videos inside of a tasting. But we have to use the tools that can give us data, because this is possible too. And so it's important to use tools that where we can have a feedback from the visitors, and they can be active. And so this is a suggestion because there are a lot of situations from Instagram to Facebook, from Zoom to Google Meet, and so on. And I think it's very interesting to choose the one that can facilitate the interaction. For example, it's possible to ask to the people what do they think about the wine that they are tasting, and what do they feel in that moment, and collect that data. That are very important points. And I close with the necessity to use a human touch with technology. And so because this is the most important point. And so it's very important to create a very good storytelling and give the feeling, the emotions. And in this way, we can create digital testing, for example, through the QR code that we can put more often on the labels. And this can be a great occasion to have more visitors in the vineyards later.
Exactly. I think that balance, as I said in the beginning, that technology should be an enabler and not necessarily a deterrent or something that kind of controls or overtakes the human experience. So the human experience has been such a special part of wine tourism and these wine regions for so many years. And it's very important that we find that balance. So Irene, I just want to ask you, in your opinion, one positive thing that's emerged from this crisis is that we are all embracing digital, and that brands have responded very creatively with online and virtual wine tastings. What role do you think will virtual reality and virtual events continue to play in marketing in the future? Does it have a place, or is it something that was just short-lived during lockdown? If you can just switch your microphone on for us, please.
Yeah, thank you. One thing that was very surprising was that, when this whole thing started, we thought, how are we going to approach now the way we work, and how we are going to approach the public in our relationship with the wineries and the wine routes and so on. But what happened was that this new way of communication turned out to be really effective. And one really good thing that it was that allowed ourselves to organize ourselves and the different actors that we were in relation to. And also that when we organize this, say, for example, webinars, as we have been working, with different countries and regions within Chile, organizing webinars or participating in these online activities, is that actually a lot of people could participate, because, before it was reduced the number of people who could actually participate in situ, which is a lot less than, can have access online. So I think this has come to stay, and it's going to be a complementary tool to actually live presence. But I think that, this digitalization of the offer and activities and communication should prevail within time. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Zahida, we have a question from Chicago, and it is about, do we agree in the importance of developing digital platforms, B2B and B2C, to stimulate the tourism with local producers? If you want to just comment on that, Zahida.
For me, it's very important to have new tools in all of the digital platforms, B2B and B2C, and also in the travel platforms like the tour operator or OTAs, because we need more flexibility tools to put in contact the producers and the consumers, and also to give more to give the opportunity to the travelers or the consumers to build a package of products, and also package of meet their travel expectations.
Fantastic. Very, very true. I want us to move to consumer markets and trends and behavior. And, you know, as people, we are quite adaptable, and we've seen already changes in the way in which we travel, and we'll see a lot more as we're going forward. And Catherine, domestic tourism is leading the recovery, and you've shown us a very interesting presentation from France. How can this pandemic and the learnings that you shared and that destinations have help destinations with weaker domestic markets to stimulate stronger domestic markets for wine tourism? I mean, how can we bring the category of wine down to earth and make it more desirable for the local market?
Well, that's the challenge, actually, from my point of view. You know, in France, or in Bordeaux in particular, most of our visitors are foreigners, given as far as wine tourism is concerned. So early enough in spring, wineries started to say, well, who is going to visit? Who will be coming? We have no tools. They did not have any ready tools to reach the domestic people, to reach the locals. How do we promote our wines or offer towards the locals? It's a new, I mean, tourist operators as well do have to reinvent themselves and to build a new databases indeed, and to find new ways to reach the locals, which was not their first were concerned before. We know that even though, and we all cross fingers, and international traveling will be possible, hopefully in a short future, but we all know that this new customers, these new clients, we have to engage with on the longer term. And this is what marketing, storytelling, and all these tools that have been launched and created for that purpose will have to remain and to develop.
Thank you, that's very true. And staying on markets, we have a question about the Asian markets and specific initiatives that US destinations have to attract the Asian markets, particularly now post-lockdown, and the middle class in particular as well. So Lorena, can you talk to us about that? Are you happy to answer that question, Lorena?
Yes, sorry. And regarding Asian tourism, Argentina wouldn't be like the most successful case. Actually, I think so far we have very little Asian tourism in Argentina, and even wine tourism, even less. We are having much more people coming from Europe, coming from Brazil, specifically here, from the United States, from Canada. So I think the Asian tourism is a challenge. We know there is but we also have the knowledge that the Asian people mostly want to, or they aim to visit much more so far European destinations, and probably South America will follow later in their interests. This is the feeling that we have from here. So we have very little Asian tourism.
And do you see this,
yeah, sorry.
Do you see this as an opportunity perhaps for destinations like yourselves and others You know, we tend to kind of stick to our knitting and what we are used to. And is this not an opportunity for us to explore new markets, particularly in terms of your offering, and your offering that is perhaps very attractive to visitors from Asia, but maybe in the past they have just not known about what you have to offer? Is this not an opportunity for a destination like Argentina?
I definitely think that it's an opportunity, and this opportunity is also coming along with the development of the Argentinian or the South American wine exports to Brazil, which is something that is actually growing a lot. In the case of Chile, for example, I'm not sure how it happens. Maybe Irene can have some information, because there's a much stronger relationship between the Chilean wines and the Asian markets than the Argentinian ones. Right now, Argentina is working strongly in the exports of wines towards China and the Asian markets in general, because we know it's an opportunity right now. It's raising, I mean, their economy is growing and they are willing to demand more products, and we are working very hard to communicate and to promote our products there. So I think the communication of, for example, Argentina or South American destinations as destinations for wine tourism will come together with the knowledge of the wines of our countries in China or in Asia in general. So I think it definitely is an opportunity, but we also think we need to prepare because we have not much knowledge about the Asian travelers and what they want, what they care.
And Sandra, I want to come to you and talk to you about the tricky thing of price, just very quickly. When we speak about markets and value, you know, it's such a tricky balance between, you know, do we have dual pricing for locals and internationals? Do we look at value versus cheap? You know, where do we play, and how important will price and value be in the future? And do you think we can package wine tourism to give better value to travelers? How important is price in the recovery strategy?
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. It's great to see everyone on the panel. Thank you, Mariette, for such a brilliant moderation, and everyone for such a practical insight. I think this is what we all need at this moment when we're trying to navigate territory that we don't know. I think the point of pricing comes to the point of adaptation to the domestic market. It's not just about the pricing, it's about knowing your domestic market. And I think some of the colleagues here mentioned it. We often did not pay enough attention to the domestic market. I think actually wine tourism sector is a little bit an exception here, because most other products will probably have a balance between domestic and international, which is a little bit more towards international than wine tourism, who already have a big part of the domestic market in many destinations. But I think there's a challenge to understand that market. What does it want? How does it move? Who they travel with? Even the opening times. We were just having very good examples of the need of wineries to change their opening times to local people, because they'll be working. So their availability is probably for an after work moment. So I think the issue of pricing needs to be seen within the whole understanding and adapting to the domestic market. Not necessarily you need to differentiate prices, you need to adapt to your target market.
Very, very true. Thank you for that. While I have you on the screen, and before I let you finish for us, I think, you know, wine tourism supports a really delicate but wide ecosystem or value chain. And there are many small enterprises within this value chain. And the pandemic has really put the spotlight on sustainable tourism and our impact on the world. And for many consumers, their choice of destination or experience will be influenced directly by being able to see their contribution making a positive difference on the ground where it's needed most. How important will sustainability and the visual evidence of local communities benefiting from wine tourism be post-lockdown? And what advice do you have for regions or wine routes to repackage themselves with this in mind, with sustainability in mind?
Well, I think it's a trend we were already obviously seeing. I think there is an interesting consumer profile, and we're seeing that younger people are the ones who are more willing to travel in the post-lockdown. And they're probably the ones who are more also sustainable awareness. So those two components we have to have in mind, apart from, I always say sustainability needs to have a business case, because obviously we have our commitments, but the sustainability of the business is also one of those priorities. So it's important to develop products that show, first of all, the authenticity of the local community. And I think that's not only from an environmental point of view, but also from a social point of view. I think it's important that as we go back and we restart tourism, the well-being and the health of workers must be placed as a priority as well. And I think consumers value that if they see that the workers are taking all the measures to protect themselves as well, because at the end of the day, they will be protecting the clients. I think as an industry, we do have a challenge because we will be using much more disposable materials. So I think it's important that all companies have a strategy to address that increase of disposable use of masks, cleaning, plastics. Also, if we're going to individual portions, unfortunately, I think we cannot forget our commitment with eliminating plastics, and the new rules are often a challenge, so we need to find that balance. And the third one is really the outdoors activities open also an opportunity for people to value the natural and the cultural environment much more. So I think if you enjoy something, you will protect it somehow. So I think we really need to make sure that, as before, but more than ever, sustainability is one of our pillars.
Fantastic. And a message of hope. Is there a hope for the industry? I would like to hear from perhaps just in closing, Catherine and maybe Irene, before we hand back to you to close, Sandra. Catherine, is there a message of hope? Is there hope for the industry?
Well, I would say that for us in Chile, what's happening is a great opportunity. I know it has been hard hitting, but at the same time, we now have the chance to make a call to the local community and to put into value what a great country we have. Instead of putting our eyes abroad, trying to consume more of the local product, to work together with the value chain of every wine region to enhance what our territories can give us, and to make wine tourism a priority, in the touristic horizon for Chilean nationals. So I think that you can always flip the coin and see the other side, and we know that Chileans are going to stay within the national barriers this time within our frontiers, and I think that it's unequivocally a very important opportunity that arises for us.
Thank you. Sandra, it's now just up to you to, sorry, Catherine, do you want to just add something? We didn't hear you earlier. You're okay.
Sorry.
Sandra?
I'm fine.
No, please go ahead, Catherine.
No, I just wanted to mention that we also suffer a wine crisis in France with the problems with exports, with the problem of Asian markets going down for us. And we all are totally aware that wine tourism is one of the most important solutions to recover from this crisis. So yes, there is a message of hope for wine tourism, because the whole wine industry will be behind us for that purpose.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sandra. There's obviously a need for continued discussion, and that's why the think tank is such a wonderful space to put our heads together from all over the world and find sustainable solutions for this very, very important sector. Thank you very much, everybody, for participation. We are now handing over to Sandra to close this evening or this morning, wherever you are in the world. Fantastic webinar. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Mariette. Thank you, everyone. I just want to invite Lorraine. I know she had a comment on the sustainability issue. So we don't want to pass that. And then
it's okay. Sorry, it's just that the issue went by a little, but I wanted to emphasize that many times, I mean, most wineries, for example, here in Argentina, work very hard on sustainability, not only for certifications, but because there is a conviction on this. But I think we need to work on the communication of the things we do in terms of sustainability, not only environmentally, but also socially, as you say, because there's a lot of work being done, but it's kind of, it's not part of the message that most wineries transmit during their tours and during their experiences. So I think it's important that we start considering the importance of communicating what we do in our wine tourism experiences, because there's a lot being done, and perhaps we're not just capitalizing the communication of it.
Thank you, Lorena. Thank you very much. I think that's a very important point that we actually miss often. There's a lot being done. We communicate on the gastronomy, on the more practical, but not so much on the issues of sustainability. As I close, and I just want to share my screen very briefly. I'm not going to do a presentation. I know we're running out of time, and I'm very conscious of that. But I just wanted to thank, first of all, I want to thank Solange and the team and Mr. Barroca and all the OIV colleagues from reaching out to us and making this possible. As the Secretary General mentioned in the beginning, we are reinforcing our collaboration, and I trust that these opportunities of sharing experiences are probably one of the most value-added initiatives that we can have. I also want to thank all the panelists. They're all part of a new initiative called International Wine Tourism Think Tank, and it would be important that that brand stays there. It was born with the crisis as an example of the fact that partnerships have been one of the good things that this crisis has brought. And I think this partnership, which is actually a woman-led partnership, so also another point on women empowerment in the SDG agenda. So I really want to thank the network. And I think the idea was to bring innovation into this debate, and I really thank you for being practical. I think this was a little bit the objective, more important that we had. Few closing notes to take home, if I may. 27th of September is World Tourism Day. I invite you all who are with us around the world to celebrate this year on the topic of tourism and rural development. What better product than wine tourism to actually make this possible? So I think it's a great opportunity to communicate from the wineries, from the destinations, the value of wine tourism in this context. I also wanted to leave just a few ideas which have come out from the work that UNWTO has been doing on wine tourism and from our conference in Chile last December. Thank you, Irene and the team. It was an amazing event, as Mariette mentioned, and our last memory of traveling before being closed at home. So I just leave you with a few ideas which also go much in line with what was discussed, the importance of knowing your customers. And we've discussed that particularly now the domestic market. And here I think we need to invest in data. And if the wineries alone cannot do it, because often they're small, I think solutions like Chile example is a great example of how collaboration can make that happen. The importance of including the communities in the experiences in the value chain is very, very enriching to see the restaurants coming to the wineries. Here in Spain, I think generally it has been the other way around. So I think it's a new start of partnerships. The importance of having a governance model, I think Enoturismo Chile and also the work that Catherine does probably in Bordeaux is important. If you don't bring public, private sector and communities together on a solid structure that stays, it's going to be really difficult to survive the crisis. The importance of the destination, and I think sometimes the wineries have a strong brand, but the destination is also a strong brand. So we need to enhance the destination. People often think I'm going to Argentina and then I'm going to experience wine tourism, or the other way around, but the destination is pretty important. How do we engage visitors in the new normality with all the social distancing? But it is more and more important that the innovation comes from that side of having visitors doing activities. And I actually think that for wine tourism, this is an opportunity, because most of the experiences were very much tied to the visit to the winery. So I think it will be a good opportunity to get out in a good sense of the winery. The importance, obviously, of going digital and mobile, and of building partnerships. I really would like to end with this one. And I think building partnerships outside the box. I think we generally obviously think about gastronomy and we think about local products, but I think we need to look beyond that. We need to look into the technology partners. There was a really good example from fundraising activities. So I think it's thinking a little bit of, you know, what partners would I go to that I never thought about? And I think this is a great opportunity, particularly to overcome this situation. So with that, I'd like to leave you and hopefully to actually see you very soon. And if not before that, to see you next year in May in Alentejo, Portugal. I'm free to say this because I'm Portuguese, so you will have a fantastic experience. So please do mark your agendas. And I do hope that we can all be there, because that will be a sign that we're back in traveling and that this crisis has been behind us. Once again, thank you very much. I hope to see you all very soon. And I hope you enjoy a good glass of wine if time is already correct in your time zones. And I'll say goodbye to everyone and hope to see you very soon.